Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. In this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night to the local time. First we're going to start with Artyomovsk. We got a lot of updates from this territory, from this battle. There are a lot of clashes all over the combat line, starting from the northern flank to the southern one. And today we got a lot of geolocated videos, a lot of things that explain us the real situation. First, let's start with the southern flank. Yesterday we discussed that some sources were saying that Ukrainians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to penetrate the Russians' defense orders, and currently there were clashes for these trenches. But that was this piece of information. That piece of information is not quite correct. Basically, as soon as the Ukrainians got to the Russian side of the channel, as soon as the Ukrainians got their positions very close to the Russians took a decision to leave the open air positions and to move most of their forces to the forest lines, because you know that this war is war of drones and war of artillery, of course, and the damage that can FVP drone deal is significant. You know, we saw a lot of videos during the previous days. I published on the channel as well how the Ukrainians, just using regular drone, were able to attack, and to not just the Russians, either the Russians were attacking the Ukrainians. So basically, currently, the parties have found just one solution how to reduce the damage from the FVP drones, and this is the solution: to hide inside the forests and forest lines. So the Russians left the open air and they moved to the forest lines, and currently this is the situation on this territory. Basically, if the Ukrainians were somewhere here, we would color every territory in red, but now the Russians stick to the forests, and they're not leaving this area, and they're not moving like along the fields. But it doesn't mean that Ukrainians control the fields. No, these areas in the gray zone. In the nearest updates of the map, I'm going to add the Ukrainian control area for better understanding, and so on. So there are very fierce fightings, and the Ukrainians published the video dated on the 30th of June, like 3 days ago, how the Ukrainians were bombing and shelling and attacking the Russians' positions in the forest. This is the forest on the south west of Klishchiivka. So as you can see, one more time, this is the forest. This is forest, and this is the forest line that goes from the forest. So this is the area. As you can see, the Russians are trying to keep, and this is the main defense belt of the Russians in Klishchiivka, not the one that we saw among the fields, because that's one located in the open air, and the main defense belt is this forest, and currently the Russians control this area, and only if the Ukrainians are able to enter this forest, we can start saying that maybe the Ukrainians have some progress in taking control over Klishchiivka. For now, the Russians feel themselves very safe, and the Ukrainians continue attacking the Russians in this area. Very interesting updates are coming from the southern flank, from Kurdyumovka, and the sources are saying that as a result of the western sources are saying that as a result of fierce fightings, the Ukrainians managed not just to clear the Ukrainian side of the channel, but Ukrainians also managed to cross the channel and to establish control over the forest lines and strongholds, fortifications on the Russian side of this area. So basically, we will update this map by the next video if we got more confirmation. So basically, the Ukrainians currently control something like this. And of course, this is not very good, nice position. If you have this bridgehead, you need always to make attempts to develop the bridgehead, because if you control just this area, you will be always under fire, and sooner or later you will be forced to step back from these positions to the western side of the channel. But currently the Ukrainians managed to enter, and currently they're trying to develop this bridgehead to the north, east, and to the south, and there are very fierce fightings, and a lot of things depends exactly on this battle. Also, the Ukrainian sources and the Russians and the Ukrainians published the video of battles in this area, and the sources are saying that currently the the real Ukrainian positions goes somewhere here. So this is like the real Ukrainian position, and everything that's on the top of this yellow line is under complete Ukrainian control, and everything from this yellow line to the south to the Russian cloud is in the gray zone and the battle area where the main fierce battles took place during the previous days. So this is basically the real Ukrainian control, and everything below the yellow line is the gray zone. Also, the Russians published a video how they're bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions in this residential area very close to Artyomovsk. This video is also geolocated, and basically this area confirms a strong control, Ukrainian control over this residential area right on the west of Artyomovsk of Bakhmut. The Russians are saying that recently the Ukrainians started using new tactics against Artyomovsk, and currently the sources are saying that Ukrainians do have possibilities to send small squads, small groups of Ukrainian forces even inside of Artyomovsk, not just the fightings like in the vicinity, like in the forest lines, but the Ukrainians currently are able to send forces there in this direction. And basically this situation can be done just because of the fact that during the previous days the Ukrainians managed, using the artillery, destroy these like strongholds, Russian strongholds. Most of these buildings were reduced to ruins, and this was the main Russian positions on the western part of Bakhmut that the Russians were using to control the movements of the Ukrainians, at least on this flank. But as soon as the Ukrainians destroyed this area, there are just one ruins now. They currently have possibilities to send their forces very deep inside of Artyomovsk, and basically Artyomovsk is under complete Russian control, we can say at least 99%, but basically the Russians' positions go somewhere here, and this everything that's on the left side of this red line is also in the gray zone, is some kind of battlefield, and the Russians control just the real control over just the territory that located on the east of this red line. Not because the Russians can't possibilities, the main reason is that there are no place where the Russians can establish normal stronghold and to give a battle to the Ukrainians. Furthermore, the Russians published another video how they were bombing and shelling the area using the Ivanovska with the incendiary projectiles. On this video we see how the Russians try to reduce the Ukrainians' logistic and possibilities, at least in this city. Still, Ivanovska is the main logistic settlement of the Ukrainians on this side of this channel, and using this area the Ukrainians support their forces who attacks the Russians in direction of Klishchiivka from the north. And both the Ukrainians use this area to attack and support the Ukrainians who try to attack and enter the western part of Artyomovsk. So the Russians, if they want to reduce the pressure of the Ukrainians on these front lines, sooner or later they will need to make this difficult decision and to start storming operation of the settlement. Only this operation, only establishing control over Ivanovska, can reduce the Ukrainian pressure and can secure the entire western flank of Bakhmut. But I'm not sure whether the Russians are ready now, are able to do this such a big and very difficult operation right now. Also, the Ukrainians published the video of the results of fierce fightings on the north of Kromova, this valley, this living road, and as you can see, lots of destroyed armored vehicles from the Ukrainian side. These armored vehicles were destroyed a long time ago, and this video just to show the results and just to show just a picture of the past days battles on this area. Also, the Russians published very interesting video, another geolocated, very fresh video showing the real Ukrainian positions on the northern flank. Today the Russians published the video how they attacked and bombed the Ukrainian tanks who was moving along the fields, and basically this confirms the combat line and the front line on the northern flank. And as you can see in this video, the Ukrainian tanks was moving from the Ukrainian tank, was moving from this forest line, from this one to this, in this direction, and basically somewhere in this area, maybe this tank got on the minefield that was established using the distance mining method, or maybe this tank got under the artillery attack of Krasnopol. But anyway, this video confirms that Ukrainians control exactly this area, and a few days ago we showed the video that the Russians have control over this forest line. The fierce fightings on this front line continues on between Berkhovka and Grigorievka. The Russians trying to develop their attacks in direction of Grigorievka, and Ukrainians almost every single day make more and more attempts to attack in direction of Berkhovka along the railroad ways, and of course in direction of Yahidne. But for now, all those attacks, all those attempts were repelled by the Russians, and the situation, you can say, is pretty stable, at least on this part of the front line. Now we are moving to Vremivka tactical bridgehead. We got also a lot of updates from this bridgehead. The Russians published the video how they were bombing and shelling the Ukrainian positions inside of Makarovka. Just another geolocated video showing that this settlement under Ukrainian control, and also another confirmation that the forces who are located in that settlement is located in some kind of trap. As you can see on this video, the Russians managed to destroy the Max Pro light armored vehicle using the drone attack, using the FVP drone, probably the strongest and the most terrible weapon during this special military operation. Very interesting updates are coming from the north of Priyutne. The Russians published the satellite video of this bridgehead. The Ukrainians during the previous days made a lot of attempts to attack this settlement from every single side. And mainly, as you can see, according to this satellite, we see the northern border of Priyutne, and there are forest line that goes from the south to the north. And the quality maybe of this picture and this video doesn't give you possibility to see the real picture of these clashes, but this picture tries to show you the signs of shelling along the forest lines. For now, it's very difficult to understand who was shelling, but the Russian sources were saying that, who published this video, that those were attacks of the Ukrainians. So basically, the Ukrainians were moving along this forest line first to the east and then to the south. And the Russians were bombing and shelling those trenches line just with one purpose, to stop the Ukrainians. So basically, as we can see, most of the mappers, if that information is correct, both of the mappers show the wrong picture of the situation in vicinity of Priyutne. And basically, according to at least this photo, the real picture, the real situation in this area is that Ukrainians during the previous days of clashes at least managed to establish control over this part of small salient on the south of Novoselivske and on the north of Priyutne. And basically, these forest lines that Ukrainians were using during the previous attempts to attack are in the gray zone, and the front line, the combat line, is much closer to Priyutne, and basically the Russians' positions ends with the end of Priyutne. And for now, we don't have any information, any updates about whether the supply road between Stepova and Priyutne still exists, or maybe the Ukrainians have already cut this road, and currently the Russians have possibilities to support Stepova just through Vishnyovo and from Novozlatopol. So just this way. Anyway, we see that the Ukrainians currently are very focused in this area. The Ukrainians are using the forces of 36th Marine Brigade, 35th, and of course 23rd Mechanized Brigade to attack Priyutne from different sides. Currently, this area is like Rovnopol a few days ago, and we expect that there are very high chances that within the next week or maybe days, because there are not much time left before the NATO summit, the Ukrainians will try to make a final rush, final push, and they will take control over this small settlement. We haven't received any updates about Kherson area after the Ministry of Defense published a piece of information that they cleared the bridgehead. From that moment, we haven't received any negative or positive news for both sides. Now we're moving to the north, and we're going to discuss a little bit Novoselivske as well. If you remember, during the previous 2 days, we got a lot of updates about bombing and shelling of Ukrainian positions in Kislovka. At least for the previous 2 days, we got 3 videos of destroyed 3 ammo depots, rotation for positions, Ukrainian positions, and so on in this settlement. And yesterday we discussed that the forces of 92nd Mechanized Brigade was completely destroyed during the previous days, months of clashes, and due to heavy losses. And the Ukrainians have redeployed forces of 32nd Mechanized Brigade in this area, but this is newly created brigade from the Western countries, and believe me, they don't have a lot of experience because they don't have the same as such experience as, let's say, 92nd Mechanized used to have. The 92nd was redeployed, and due to this process, during this process of rotation, during this process of weaknesses of Ukrainian forces due to destroying like ammo depots, the Russians launched their own offensive operation in direction of Novoselivske. This one, basically, according to sources we have, the Russians have already eliminated the bridgehead of Ukrainians on the Russian side of the railroadways, and currently there are fierce fightings for Novoselivske itself. And you know that when talking about the Russians, there are very experienced professional guys. There are these guys in the vicinity of Novoselivske from the Russian side in this area since maybe the establishing of this front line in this September, in the autumn of 2022, and the main opponent, the main enemy 92nd was destroyed, and currently they're replaced by 13th, and the Russians took a decision to use the moment, to use this situation, and currently they try to penetrate the Ukrainians' defense orders and to force the Ukrainians to step back. Basically, the global plan of the Russians, of course, is you attack Novoselivske and using this bridgehead first to attack Berestove to the north, of course, and to attack Stelmakhovka to the south. This is the global plan. It's the maximum plan, and if the Russians can do this, of course, this can change the entire picture of this front line and can create a significant danger for the entire Ukrainian forces on this bridgehead, because after that there will be no settlements in front of Russians almost till the Oskol River, and of course, if the Russians can do this operation very fast, they can get Oskol River very fast as well, and then it's going to be completely different story of the entire bridgehead on this territory. And that's it for this short video. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes to my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.